Bases dropped on a new round of Soccer's morning show. Welcome to Soccer Down here for a while past Wednesday, and we're back in Office HD. We're back, Jarrett. We're back in the office. We made it.
So happy for you.
I'm
I'm not joking.
I know what my internet is like. I know what the surroundings are like. I know that getting
It's
from
like taking a dog out of boarding.
Yes, absolutely. So John here, Jared there, and since it is a wall pass Wednesday, sounds like you're making breakfast, which is a good thing because I was going to ask what you're making for breakfast, considering you're the cook.
I am actually cooking right now. So I am in the process of peeling a pomegranate.
Okay.
And just made oat cakes.
Okay.
So
And
little oat, little flaxseed, little milk.
Okay.
Actually, I need to flip them. Yeah. So.
See, you're multitasking far better than I do on a daily basis. I mean,
we're a choice.
Well, I know, but we're doing a show, and you're actually doing breakfast, which puts you way ahead of me when it comes to doing things. What I wanted to do this morning, and it's we get into this time of the year where we're fading out of one year, going into the next, and the way that I teased it this morning on social media, when we were going live and everything. Obviously we'll get into senior superlatives and things like that on Thursday and Friday and kind of go through the year a little bit. But it kind of goes with an offshoot of the conversation that we had with Bart yesterday and trying to figure out, okay, the way too early version of what you think the Eastern Conference is going to look like. And so this morning, I want everybody to put their thinking caps on, or at least grab some paper or something like that, because we know for Atlanta United fans, they want to be top 7. They want to be chasing a home playoff game.
I feel like that's a low estimate personally, but
I know, but
I think top 7 is very that's bare minimum for what people are expecting.
Right, and so with that. And Garth Lagerwey's notion that he wants to have a home playoff match, I want to know what everybody thinks the layout of the Eastern Conference is going to be. And we'll go through, like we did yesterday, what happened with the top 7 teams, who the top 7 teams are. We'll go through the East and lay out what you think is going to happen with the top 7 teams here coming up in 2023. Remember, physicals are on January 6th. Training camp starts January 8th. And we have the game in Chattanooga in late January. I want to say it's the 28th, if memory serves. And then we have AmFam 2 on February 15th. So if you're looking for anything to do with your SO for Valentine's Day, perhaps get them AmFam 2 tickets or something to that effect. And then the season starts on the 25th. So basically, we're less than 2 months away from the beginning of the season. And the way that I premised this was, okay, here's the deal. Yes, it's subject to change, but what I wanted to know was how you think the Eastern Conference is going to lay out this year. Who's going to be the 7 above the bar? Who's not going to be above the bar? But remember, going from last year, if you've got folks that aren't going to make it, if folks below the bar are going to make it in, who's not going to make it in? So that's what I wanted to get into. I want to know who your MVP is going to be. I want to know who Golden Boot's going to be. I want to know who Golden Glove's going to be. So we'll do that this morning when it comes to MLS and the Eastern Conference. And so put your thinking caps on. We'll roll through the East, and we'll let everybody kind of feel their way through the Eastern Conference. But as I said, subject to change, understanding that this is this side of the calendar year heading into 2023. But I wanted to see what everybody thought their grid of the Eastern Conference was going to look like this morning. But that is not opening kickoff. And I can actually do this now. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And QR code right there for those of you watching on Twitch this morning. And use the code Soccer Down Here 15. You get 15% off your purchase. And they in turn take 10% and roll it over into the youth game our friends at kickoffcoffeeco.com, kickoffcoffeeco on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And Jarrett, what I wanted to do this morning for opening kickoff was bid a high and hearty farewell to our friends at East Bay. And it comes off of something that you mentioned yesterday. And now let me get this straight. East Bay is done and dusted at the end of the calendar year. That's correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so we have no more East Bay at the end of the calendar year. For those who never got to sample East Bay, what did they miss out on in the time that we were blessed with having East Bay and East Bay catalogs and things like that? What are folks missing out on now that East Bay will no longer exist in 3 days' time?
For me personally, I can tell you that, like, my experience with it was always sitting around, was like sitting around a classroom table in school and opening up that calendar, open up the book, and getting a look at new spikes for baseball, new gloves, new bats, like whatever they had, new uniforms, new designs. This is 2004, 2005-ish. And there were moments before that we used to look at them when we were like playing Little League too, but this is like the core memory I have for them is looking at those. Like I vividly remember Jimmy Rollins being one of the focuses on their sales. It's just a good time to be alive.
Yes.
For lack of a better word, it was like, I know we always talk about like, the good old days, and oftentimes the good old days aren't as great as we remember. We just remember key details of them. Um, and
That's the
yeah,
thing. But that's the thing about the good old days is that I think that we lock ourselves into what we remember them being, and we'll block out things that weren't necessarily germane to what we were doing. By the way, 70% off on the entire site. So eastbay.com, 70% off. And so thanks 70 from our friends at East Bay for the remainder of the 4 days that they're there. So if you're into like sports brands and things, maybe you ought to be able. Maybe you can pick up a big end of year deal before East Bay disappears forever and ever. But yeah, I mean, when you looked at East Bay, it was one of those things where you sat there and it's like, ooh, I like that, I like that, I like that, I like that, and it was just one of those. For me, it was like East Bay kit bag for looking at soccer kits and jerseys and gear that I thought I could pick up cheaper by shopping overseas and looking at a place like Kit Bag. East Bay was kind of like that for me here in the States. But, obviously times change and things like that. But just, looking at East Bay, and part of our, part of our makeup is what we remember and what we carry with us. And sometimes it is, one of those friends that we look at online and sit there and go, man, this has got to be a great business. It's fantastic what they're doing. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. And, you're looking at anything and everything. But no, when you mentioned the impending demise of East Bay, that was just something that kind of triggered with me. It's like, yeah, man, that's right. East Bay. We used to shop at East Bay a whole lot. We get
yeah, we used to look at stuff we couldn't afford. You're like, I mean, because it's baseball. It is a different world. Like I'm looking at new spikes, looking at new gloves. Like my scoop I used for years at first base through high school until my junior or senior year was like a $35 H-Web that I got at like Played Against Sports or something, just because it worked. I mean, the thing was so ridiculously broken in. I also broke the H-Web on it like 3 times, where I more than once. Like I would the webbing on it. If in H-Web, if you've never seen one, it literally is what it sounds like. The pocket, the webbing, the pocket at the top is 2 vertical pieces of leather and then 1 horizontal one, making the shape of an H. And that H-Web got popped so many times and busted where the ball would actually come out the other side that at a certain point when I used it, after every time I caught a ball, I had to reach on the back of it and grab the twine and pull it tight again.
Yes.
Because if I didn't, the ball wouldn't necessarily pop through every time, but it would start to peek through the back. Like there's a couple times where I would catch it and it fell. I was like, did I catch that? And I'd look down and the ball's halfway sticking out the back of the glove. But yeah, like I used a cheap glove for forever because it was great. It worked so well. And East Bay, it's like, oh, $250 glove. That sounds fine. $350 bat. That's fine.
Oh man.
Because like it wasn't until like junior senior year I got my own bat. Otherwise we shared them.
Yeah.
Got a 34-inch Easton Connection. The thing was great. Just abused that bat. I think it was dead by the time I got rid of it. The thing was completely dead.
Were you a 34-30, a 34-32, or a 34-34?
34-31 because in high school you have to have a 3-ounce drop. So most people use the 33-30. Some people use the 32-29. And I, despite having, orangutan arms like the 34-31, I wanted a little bit more weight, not because I could swing it with power, because again, you get into people throwing in the high 80s, low 90s. They're providing it's an aluminum bat or a metal composite bat. Mm-hmm. They provide most of the power for you. All you have to do is put a smooth swing on it. So I would just use a heavier bat.
There you go. Because for me, it was...
And I had plate coverage for days.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it was if I could get away with a 34-30, I would. And that was kind of the way that it was for me. Sharif, sorry. No, we opening kickoff this morning. And so Sharif joined mid-opening kickoff. And he's asking, is this an old-fashioned mall like the one in Stranger Things? Actually, we're talking about East Bay and the demise of East Bay. They are leaving us as an entity at the end of the calendar year. So we were kind of sharing early online shopping memories and things like that. And so East Bay's going away, and they're having a 70% off sale. So it's kind of shopping mallish, but more early online shopping. And so East Bay is leaving us. And so this is an ode to East Bay this morning before we get into what we were looking at for the morning. But yeah, so we're just talking about baseball bats and gloves and signatures and the signatures that you would have inside the gloves that you would buy, those kinds of things in other sports growing up. But that's your opening kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, people from soccer still, of course, used it. People in basketball, people in football. Everyone had a use for East Bay.
Yes.
East Bay was, to your point, to Shree's point, like it kind of was like a shopping mall kind of thing where you'd get in the mail and you would just be happy. Like we would sit around, we would ignore our Spanish class, which was easy to do because my Spanish teacher wasn't great.
Wow.
She was bad, man.
Oh, wow.
It's also one of those things you learn as you get older that like getting Spanish teachers, like especially when you get higher up, like from different countries, you're getting different nuances from different countries. It's confusing. I'd rather have just learned it from one specific culture, one specific country.
Yes.
As opposed to like getting change ups all the time, because then they'd be like, oh well, where I came from, we did this. Okay, well, my next teacher came from, they're going to do something different. So I'm confused because I'm 15 years old and I'm not that smart. But yeah, man, it was kind of like a shopping mall getting delivered to you. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you get, it's Christmas time and you get the Walmart or let's say in the 1950s Sears catalog. It was like getting a shopping mall delivered to you, a bunch of things you're not going to get, things that you want that you'll never have.
Yes. By the way, if you're looking for cleats, they're out of soccer cleats, by the way. So all you can get are like pants and T-shirts and sneakers. They're out of the cleats. So
yep. Hey, I mean, if you're playing futsal, see if you can find some futsal shoes.
Yep. They have some Adidas DONs that are available right now. They couldn't find any matches for adult cleats. So go to East Bay, 70% off.
See if they got some Samba classics in there.
Oh, there you go. Wow. Because all of the
I know Sambas generally elicit a more mixed reaction.
Yes.
From people, but yeah, it's always an option.
Well, I mean, Emilio, we're talking pretty much anything and everything in the catalog, and so you're looking 34-32s. We were talking baseball bats, because traditionally when you're growing up, you didn't necessarily want to have the length of the bat and the ounces in weight be the same. You wanted it to be a lighter bat than a longer swing. And so that's why I was asking.
Again, that was Georgia high school regulation. We had to have a 3-ounce drop on our bat. Because if you didn't have that, you would end up with people swinging a 7-ounce drop, which is what you would see in like a Little League. Because at that point, you're 8 years old. You're just trying to get the bat around. You're just trying to build. You're trying to build good habits. You get to high school. I mean, some of these kids in high school you play against are going to go to college. They're going to play D1. Some of them are going to get drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are already very big and strong. The last thing you need them to do is to swing a 33-ounce piece of composite metal.
Yes.
That is 7 ounces lighter than it is long. It's the same reason you let professionals use them. And frankly, it's why you've had conversations in the past about colleges going to wooden bats. It's harder to swing a wooden bat. You actually can't just raw power it. You actually have to swing properly. You have to use your wrists correctly. It is a little bit more difficult. But yeah,
especially
you don't want some of those people swinging a -7.
No, and especially for those of us who just enjoy hearing the sound of an aluminum bat in the college game as much as it happens, especially when you end up with games that are like 16-12 and all you're hearing is ping, 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 ping. I would love a wooden bat in a college game, but that's just me. No, Amelia, it wasn't quite pant sizes. It was baseball bats, what we were talking about, which you could pick up on East Bay.
Yeah, I'd love to hear Jason's bid on this, and I can bug him about it later. We can try and get him to record something.
Yes,
if he's got the energy.
Yes,
I would love to hear his bid on this, about his opinion, because he is also of that age group that we are, that he probably used East Bay for soccer reasons.
Yes,
and I would love to hear his opinions on it. Nick's as well.
Yes,
y'all's as well. I mean, drop in the chat like your past with East Bay, like, because that is a legend going out today.
Yes. So that was why I wanted to bring it up this morning for the opening kickoff. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. And once again, remember, use the code SoccerDownHere15, and you get 15% off your purchase for everything at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com, and Kickoff Coffee CO, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They, in turn, take everything and go 10% reinvesting into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So this morning, it's not quite. So we'll do like senior superlatives in 2022, remembrances, Thursday, Friday. We'll do that kind of stuff to finish up the week, considering that it's the 29th and the 30th, and New Year's happens on a weekend. So obviously that means we'll be back at it on Monday without any kind of interruption or anything. But what I wanted to do this morning, like I said, it was an offshoot of the conversation that we had with Bart yesterday, discussing the Eastern Conference. And I wanted to know this morning about the 2023 season. And like I said, we're 2 months away and we can alter our opinion. So this is stuff that's written in pencil. This is not stuff written in pen. But I wanted to know what you thought the Eastern Conference was going to look like next year, what you think Atlanta United's place in it is, considering what Garth Lagerwey is saying. He wants a home playoff game. And I want to know who Golden Boot and Golden Glove are going to be. So that's what we're looking at this morning. Obviously, we've got the gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We've got games to talk about from yesterday in the Premier League. We'll do that in hour number 2 when Jarrett turns into a pumpkin and actually has to do things in the real world. But there's talk of Enzo Fernandez that we can get into in hour number 2. All those kinds of things. But what I wanted to do this morning to get things kicked off was ask what you thought, what you guys think about the Eastern Conference in 2023. Bart and I went through it yesterday, and here is the layout from last season in the Eastern Conference. And this is just, by position, and we can analyze and go through it and take a peek and see what the schedule was, and we'll go from there. So Philadelphia finished number 1. Montreal finishes number 2, 2 points back. NYC was 3. Red Bulls 4. Cincinnati 5. Miami and Orlando were 6 and 7, and it went down to like the 38th tiebreaker before it was determined that Miami was 6 and Orlando was 7. Below the playoff bar, Columbus, Charlotte, New England, Atlanta, Chicago, Toronto, in that order. So, Jarrett, as I pose 2022's Eastern Conference to you, when we go down in order, Philadelphia number one, I think a lot of folks are sitting there and saying that, yeah, Philadelphia is pretty much still going to be the number one team, at least heading into everybody's thoughts for 2023. Would you agree with that assessment that everybody's kind of looking at Philly as number one to repeat in 2023 in the East?
Yeah, kind of right now where we're at with it. Rich will enjoy this, as he will so often message me after shows like at 2 p.m. when he's listening to it on delay, and he airs his grievances Festivus style.
Wait a second. He airs grievances with you, but he does it after the fact?
Well, he doesn't listen to it live all the time. People got lives. He listens to it on delay. That's fine.
Okay.
Let Rich live his life. He'll gather around the Festivus pole and air his grievances at me.
Right.
Yeah, for me, Philadelphia is that team. As it stands,
Right.
they are that team that, until further notice.
Yeah.
And further notice might be this year. Totally possible that it's this year that they pop up and start just getting smashed across the face. Don't know. But until further notice, yeah, for me, it's Philadelphia that is that team that you're kind of penciling in at that top spot because they are just so you could time them with a stopwatch.
Yeah.
And what they are and what they're going to do. They're going to have a couple of it's similar. Like New York goes through this too. Red Bulls go through this too. You'll get these stretches where they just don't look good. Style just wears on them, but then they'll find their second, third, fourth wind.
Game in Charlotte last year would probably be the example.
The game in Atlanta.
Yeah, that too.
Look, I get that game was a draw. You can't look at me with a straight face. That's right before the Charlotte game. Mm-hmm. You can't look at me with a straight face and tell me Atlanta should not have blasted Philly out of the building that afternoon.
Absolutely.
But Andre Blake did Andre Blake things. God bless him for it. That very easily could have, would have, should have been your league MVP. Mm-hmm. But because it wasn't a win when you needed it, it didn't help you. Didn't count for as much.
Yeah.
But they didn't look good here when they came here. And I thought and honestly, Atlanta played them pretty well up in Philly until the end of the first half.
Right.
Where you give up that goal right before halftime, and then Rocco Rios Novo just enters the twilight zone.
Yep.
And loses his starting job in that game.
Yep.
That was an absolute mess. But yeah, that's still one to me. You're talking like, that's still at the very least that's 1A. And I don't know who 1B is going to be because last year it's Montreal who chased them. Montreal's not the same Montreal. They've lost their manager. They've lost a number of key players. Like, what does Montreal look like next year? That's a great question.
Yes. Montreal, you decided, and we really haven't had the chance to talk about this. You're bringing Hernan Losada as your head coach. We all remember Hernan Losada at DC United. And Joey Saputo and Montreal were like, yeah, we'll roll there. So Hernan Losada is going to be the head coach in Montreal for 2023. You don't know who 1B is, but Montreal, for someone who was entertaining at points on the field and off the field, honestly, with Joey Saputo's running with Wilfred Nancy. I think he chased Wilfred Nancy away, and so you bring in Hernan Losada. You don't have the same firepower that you had in 2022. I don't know about Montreal. I really don't. And like I said, we really haven't had the chance to discuss the idea of Hernan Losada back in Major League Soccer and in Montreal as opposed to DC. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. Interesting is a good word for it because it seems like there was a lot of criticism in and out of the organization about Losada. And maybe he needed to grow as a coach. He was a younger coach. The thing that sticks out to me about Losada is when we saw them play Atlanta, this is like high press or high energy, entertaining that's the first 37 minutes. Oh, they're dead.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just trying to cling on to life until halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And then same thing in the second half. Like it just seemed like it wore those guys down. And rubbing guys the wrong way, especially when you're not winning, is not a key to a long life.
No. NYC is at number 3. I don't think they fully recovered from losing Tati Castellanos, and Maxi Morales has gone home to go play at Racing Club. Obviously, this means that and Alexander Cayens is a free agent. Tinnerholm went back to Europe. Obviously, this means that they have a lot of faith in the younger players. So you're going to have young faces at NYC in front of Sean Johnson. I find NYC to be interesting for a
Did they formally re-sign Sean?
I think he's still out in the ether. He is still there.
Okay,
so
well then
I'm assuming, I'm making the grand assumption that NYC.
An assumption, and as good as Sean Johnson was, that's the piece they should. That's one of those they should probably get on it and make that happen.
Yeah, you kind of need the guy between the sticks, especially in that pinball machine of Yankee Stadium. But they're going to be playing both at City and at Yankee Stadium as we get prepared for the Dillon Butler Stadium to be built and created. So when Dillon Butler Downs comes online in Queens, then that's one thing. But right now, you haven't signed your number one keeper. You've got a lot of absences. You're going to be playing a lot of those young, talented players full time in 2023. NYC will be, under Nick Cushing, will be interesting for a different reason than what we're seeing with CF Montreal. Hopefully, impact sooner rather than later. Probably, hopefully, maybe.
No, never. Just let it go. Like Montreal is going to give us half of what we want at any given time, but not the entire thing.
Okay.
Like they're going to cook your steak to the specific degree of cooked that you want. But it's not going to be seasoned correctly.
Okay.
Or it's going to be seasoned correctly, but then it will be over and or undercooked.
Okay.
So you have to pick where you want to sacrifice.
Okay. So then where am I sacrificing on the grill with NYC?
I don't know, because this analogy applies strictly to Montreal. I don't really have one pre-built. I don't have one, in the hopper for Montreal, for NYC. Like NYC, you're sacrificing the fact that you haven't replaced Tati Castellanos because no one else has had a church built in their honor yet, because I haven't decided anyone's worthy of it yet. You still have some fun players in New York. Nick Cushing was so weird during the season. It took them forever to kind of get off the schneid. And even when they did, you're kind of like, are they real? Are they not? What are we looking at here? They finally figured it out, but is it sustainable, or was that like they got hot at the right moment kind of thing?
Yeah. True.
Because remember, they came into Mercedes-Benz Stadium at the end of the season when Atlanta's playoff hopes were not completely dashed. They were just basically the rhythmic sound of the life support machines were the only thing in your ears if you're an Atlanta United fan.
Okay.
New York City came in, and we talked about at the time, like, hey, that's potentially a very winnable game because New York had struggled since Nick Cushing had taken over. And they came in, Atlanta didn't play well, New York City wins. A little bit before and then after that, New York City kind of found a rhythm. Now, whether or not that was a rhythm built on sustained, okay, we figured it out, we're going to go forward with this, or, hey, we caught a hot spell. Happens to everybody, that's cool. And we carried it in through the playoffs. I don't know. I don't know what it was. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
We won't know right now.
No. So, big question with NYC. I think they take a step back, but I don't know how far a step back in 23.
How much are they willing to spend to bring in a striker?
Yeah.
That's another question.
Yeah, and we will look at that. Red Bulls are going to Red Bull, and they were fourth last year at 53 points. Average at home and above average away from home, which I find interesting. But, I just look at Red Bulls, and to me, they're just kind of there, Maybe it's stylistic.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm just kind of like,
What's also like Red Bulls were kind of in between the generations, for lack of a better word for me. They weren't as good as, of course, like the 2018 Red Bulls were like the tops of the modern Red Bull setup. Like that was so well put together. That was so magical. That was so wonderful. And then it just, then you lose Tyler Adams, and it just hasn't really recovered in the same way. Like they've made the playoffs, which is a damn sight better than a number of teams can say.
Yes.
Because they're able to plug and play into a style. But I think for me, and this is my personal opinion, for me with Red Bull, it's like unless they bring in that big talent that they need, they end up as a team that like, yeah, their floor is higher than some.
Yeah.
And they're able to get into the playoffs, but their ceiling is not as high.
Yeah.
And that's where they'll struggle is, yeah, your worst case scenario is not nearly as bad as other people's worst case scenarios, but you needed something like a Gazdag, like what Philly had, and you hoped that Kaku would be that guy, and he wasn't. But I think Philly showed you. God, Rich is gonna enjoy this show. Rich, hope you're well, buddy.
Yes. Salute.
I think Philly showed you that, like, yeah, you can have that pressing style, but you have to have somebody who can be a game breaker.
Yeah.
And Philly did, and it wasn't just Gazdag. Like, Philly had game breakers all over the place. It's such a well-built team with everybody buying into it.
Carranza, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I've been going back and listening to interviews with Dave Martindale, the Livingston manager, because it's not the same thing. Of course, it's like comparing apples to firestorms, but like you get that buy-in, you get these players who come in and they are completely committed to the cause, and Philly's done such a great job of that. But having a guys like Carranza and Ure and Gazdag who just came in and bought in, but are able to at a moment grab that game by the scruff of their neck to where like if teams just punt the ball down on you and say, okay, you build it up. We're gonna make a pressing team have the ball. Gazdag could make something happen. I feel like New York hasn't had anyone who can make something happen.
Yep.
And until they get that, I don't know. Like Patrick Klimala was supposed to be that guy. There are still sections of Celtic Twitter that to this day are just gobsmacked that they made money on that deal, because Celtic Twitter and Celtic fans had pretty much resigned themselves when Klimala didn't work. They're like, oh, well, that's a lost investment. Then New York wanted to pay more than Celtic paid for him. Like, oh,
okay,
we'll drive him to the airport for you.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, it's you've got to have you've got to have that guy who can create something when you're being dared to create something.
Yes. Next one was 5th, and it was FC Cincinnati. And since we have Cincinnati up and running, Bernd is in this morning, predicting Cincinnati will make a big step forward. Well put together team, very well put together team. Could compete for the top spot. They're like Philly, but they actually spend money. So Cincinnati, what's your jury telling you about Cincinnati in year 2? I mean, a lot of folks would sit there and say that because of the front office, it's almost like Philly Junior, and it's going to take a couple of years for
front office coaching staff all the way down to the style. It is.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck between two worlds here because I agree with Bernd. Like I think Cincinnati could be a team that makes that jump. I'm nervous about the idea of a team going from miserable to playoff contention and fun.
Yeah.
To competing for the top of the East in 2 years. But literally I don't know why I feel that way, because that's literally what MLS has been for a long time. Right. And as the future SDH t-shirt will say, if you are scared, get a dog.
Yes.
So I don't disagree with Bernd. Like it's absolutely a thing that we could see with them, where Cincinnati is able to make that jump. Like, can you get that sustained performance out of Brandon Vasquez beyond just 1 year? I still feel bad for him because I still feel like he should have been on that national team squad.
Yep.
I mean, he could have been Thiago Almada of the team. Like, he could have played like one game and done nothing and just run around for 10 minutes. But I thought he earned it last year, and you needed a guy like that, like a big-bodied guy who can be a poacher. That's the kind of guy I take on my team, not to start him, but just to in case I need to throw stuff at the wall. Okay. I'm still annoyed you didn't take him. I know people have gotten in my mentions about that, especially the Eurocentric ones. If you wanted to take Sabachu instead, totally cool with that. Could have taken him. either one of them would have been fine. One of my criticisms is correct from that. I thought he cared too much about like, well, we need to make sure everybody fits in perfectly. Well, sometimes you want a faulty gear in there just to throw in and screw with things. But as far as Cincy goes, yeah, man, I don't disagree with Burn. I don't know if they'll be on the top of the East, but yeah, if you told me they're like a 2-3, like top three, if they're able to continue this, if they're able to make some additions, yeah, we'll see. And Philly does spend a little bit. I mean, I know Philly doesn't spend a ton. They spend smart. And I think Cincinnati brings that to the table as well as being able to splash some money like they did with Brenner.
Yep.
I'm very interested to see what they do throughout the offseason going into next year and see, like I said, do we get that sustained production? At what parts does Lucho's been so good for so long? When does he start to slip?
Yeah. And when that Cliff shows up, is he like Wile E. Coyote chasing after the Roadrunner, and he goes past the edge? You look down, all you see is the riverbed, and you just go and drop absolutely all the way through.
The longer you put it off, the steeper it is. See
Yep.
Brady Tom.
Yes, stayed definitely a year too long. Next up in the finishing 6 and 7 is Intermas FC. They finished 6th through 72 tiebreakers over Orlando. Identical records through 34 matches, 48 points. Goals scored ended up being the difference. Great at home, awful on the road. And Chris Henderson, I still think that he's executive of the year for what they were able to navigate through and still having to navigate through. What does Inter Miami do for an encore? You won't have Gonzalo Higuain as your super sub, who really helped you down the stretch when he embraced the role that he was given. What about Inter Miami? Inter Miami gives me those question mark thought bubbles coming into 2023.
Yeah, and like, what does Campana do if he's still there? Was he able to is he able to continue to get the job done? Yeah, it felt like the Hamburg order really kind of dragged them through that last year, and it was awesome to see for him. It was awesome to see for them. I know we were very bullish going into the playoffs about them, especially if Higuain could like drag them through and like just keep it close and let him have a moment. Nah, they decided not playing defense against Orlando. Like it's literally like, do we have a chance? Yeah. What are we gonna do? Not play defense? Well, then you don't have much chance because the most important number of the playoffs is that big goose egg on the other side.
Yes.
You want to keep them off the board, and you failed to do that.
Yes.
Doesn't take away from, to your point, yes, possibly executive of the year. I thought Neville should have had some more down ballot coach of the year votes. If you wanted, I know they gave it to Curtin. I've said my piece about this. Like, Curtin won it this year.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been him, but it should have been him last year when he didn't win it. They gave it to him in the wrong year.
Yeah.
That was a more impressive job last year. And this year I would have given it to Wilfred Nancy.
Yep, I would have too.
And I thought Phil Neville deserved some down ballot votes because we were all expecting, I shouldn't say all, a bunch of us were expecting Miami to not be good because of the sanctions put in place, among other things. And they were. They went out there and they did the damn job.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome to see. Can they repeat it without Hamburglar? Your guess is as good as mine, man.
Yeah, I mean, they were still -9 in goal difference last year. Gave up 56. And the thing that staggers me still, that Andre Blake only gave up 26 goals in 34 matches last year. Unbelievable. Scored 72 as a team, only gave up 26. That takes us to number 7, and it's the purple team through tiebreakers. They did not screw it up. They re-signed Pedro Gallese through 2024. And that, to me, is key for them to be still hanging out around that 7. Still don't know where they might be scoring goals and things like that. But at least they didn't screw up re-signing one of the top keepers in the league.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't. And I mean, no, good on them for it. Like, because there was the report that it was going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Friend of the show, Nico Moreno, mentioned that there were hangups, and then the next day it gets done. So if there were hangups, it looks like they got taken care of. But you had to do that. Unless he's in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
He has been outstanding. Orlando found a goalkeeper they didn't give shell shock to. Remember, Joe Bednick was good for a few minutes, and then he was facing like 20 shots a game in Orlando, and he
Yes.
got shell shocked, and he was never the same.
Yes.
His suffering needed to be more severe, apparently.
You're not suffering enough, sir.
Basically, like you joke, but man, that's kind of how it felt. But I'll be very interested to see how they build on this. Like,
yes.
what is the ceiling for Oscar Pereira? Can he get them? Can he get them to an Eastern Conference final? Because he wasn't able to get over the biggest hill with Dallas. That being said, last year's a great success for Orlando. They get their first trophy in the U.S. Open Cup. I will shade them forever because they haven't had an away game that mattered in the U.S. Open Cup in like 4 years.
Yeah, really?
Literally 4 years, but like 2 editions of the Open Cup.
Yeah.
They have had an insane amount of good luck playing their games at home, but that's fine. You need luck along the way to win anything. Like you're going to have to have something go your way.
Mm-hmm.
And they got that. So that part, fine. Good on you. It went your way. But they got their first trophy last year, which you can tell, you can put asterisks on it all you want. They don't care. I wouldn't either if I were them. It was against the USL team. Okay, cool. Well, nowhere on that trophy does it say U.S. Open Cup champions, except it was against a USL team. It just says U.S. Open Cup champions.
Yeah.
And they're in CONCACAF Champions League 4.
But you get Tigres, brother.
You do get Tigres. Good luck.
Welcome aboard.
Good luck. Try not to die. All of that being said, it's still very impressive what they were able to accomplish last year.
Yeah.
Can they build on it? What's the ceiling look like for them? I don't know either one of those questions. They've made some moves. They've tried to make additions to it. I want to see if Oscar Pereira cannot get cold feet. Can he be a guy who doesn't get more defensive as the season goes along? Can he trust his offense and say like, hey, later in the season, I know we're tired, I know we're feeling worn out, but sometimes we're gonna have some bravery and go out here and win some games and take them by the throat. Can he be that guy?
Yeah,
I don't know.
And does CONCACAF Champions League and Leagues Cup do the 50-plus matches that could be anticipated? Does that cost a team like Orlando when it comes to the playoff picture? Because those are the 7 that made it in last year. You've got Columbus, who brought in Wilfred Nancy. They finished 8th. Charlotte, New England, they had 42 points each. Atlanta had 40. Chicago had 39. Toronto had 34. How many of the 7 that we talked about that made the playoffs in the East are not going to make the playoffs? And who is going to make the playoffs from the underside of the bar in 22 to go north of it in 23?
Well, let's take a look.
I think Miami and Orlando, for me, are the 2 that go out, and I think that's probably
I think Orlando stays in.
Okay.
I could see Montreal dropping out.
I could too, yeah.
I am not a strong believer in Hernan Losada so far. Now, he could prove me wrong and have a really good season this year.
True.
But I'm not a strong believer in what Hernan Losada was doing at DC.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's going to work in Montreal. And even aside from that, they lost a lot of bodies.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost a lot of bodies. They lost a lot of key bodies.
Yeah.
You lose Jordi Mihailovic. Victor Wanyama's gone. Still waiting for him to latch on somewhere. Do it, Atlanta. Do it. Do it.
Heel team.
Do it, Garth.
Heel team.
Do it, Carlos. Do it. Where does New York City fit into this? Like I said, Red Bulls, I think their floor is always going to be fringe playoff team. Yeah. And if they perform better in certain areas, then they can be a team. They finished 4th last year. I think that's what they can be. Can they be better than that? I don't actually know. Let's look at the teams that missed. Columbus will be interesting. Because again, Columbus as constructed wasn't a terrible team. Remember, they threw away an almost legendary amount of points at the end of games last year.
Yes.
Columbus, if they had a clutch bone in their body, that's a team that finishes third. If they had a clutch bone in their body, they're finishing third, maybe fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they just could not stop throwing away points.
Oof.
I think Charlotte will be better. I think they'll add depth. We'll see how fun they are. But you don't care about fun when you're winning. Honestly, well, most people don't care about fun when you're winning.
Yeah, true.
I don't necessarily trust New England. It's just you still have Heel.
But they couldn't recover from losing Buxa.
They couldn't recover from losing Buxa.
Or Matt, and they did get.
They got a very good goalkeeper after Matt Turner left.
They did, but I think Buxa was the big loss that they couldn't recover from last year. And you saw the difference. I mean, 47 goals scored in 34 matches. It's like 1.3, 1.4, somewhere in there. But they were awful on the road. They only won 3 matches on the road last year, 3, 8, and 6. So are you looking at 2 or 3 above the playoff bar, like a Montreal and a Montreal, a Miami, and possibly Red Bulls? Is that what you're looking at? When it comes, when it comes to those, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, it's. I mean, you want Atlanta to be in there, so I mean, you got to bump people out. I think Columbus can be a part of that conversation. Toronto still can't defend. DC United's going to take a minute. DC United's got to get with God and get right.
True.
And then Chicago, man, I don't know.
I mean, I don't see DC. I think Toronto. I mean, Toronto gave up 66 goals last year. 66. That's almost two a match. And they were 500 at home. Only won 2 matches away from home, and I think it's going to be kind of like that again this season. 2-11-4 away from home. And Criscito signed with an Italian club. Jersey picture was yesterday. So Criscito has gone back to Italy. The Serie A West variant that Toronto has tried here with Bob Bradley, I just don't see it.
Well, they don't have. I mean, they didn't have defense, but we knew that last year.
Yeah,
we knew that. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knew it. Everyone talked. It wasn't just us. We weren't like breaking news.
Yeah,
everyone knew they didn't have defenders. The greatest one still is Matt Doyle saying like all this attack isn't going to fix this, and it's just like a clip of like them defending horribly and being just bad.
Yes.
And they weren't great. Chicago, Slanina's going. How much can they actually get out of their midfield? Is Shabilka going to be able to produce in that setup? Oh yeah, and Ropes mentions the Nashville's going to be in the East.
Them too.
Oh my God, East is just going to be a dogfight. That's fine. Look, somebody's got to lose, somebody's got to win. Or in Nashville's case, somebody has to draw.
Yeah, thank you, Gary Smith. I was waiting for that one.
Well, and here's the thing with Nashville, though. Like we've talked about this before. Nashville, for me, hasn't gotten better. Like they're very much like they're not dissimilar from that team that made the awesome run in 2020.
Right.
That made it to the conference finals, which was great. But here's the thing, man. We live in a world of what have you done for me lately?
Mm-hmm.
They haven't. The answer is they haven't. Like and that's great that they're getting there. They're a consistent playoff team. But they haven't been able to. If you remember the movie Castaway, this will be my last thing before I turn into a pumpkin. Okay. If you remember Castaway, when Tom Hanks is trying to get out to sea, and he takes the raft, he keeps trying to get the raft over the last big parts of the surf, and he keeps getting pushed back in Like the time he does it and he lands on a piece of coral and like slashes his leg open. That was
Yeah.
fun. Um,
Yes.
that feels like Nashville. Like you have the league MVP. I need you to find your wings, and I need you to get over uh, the last wave
Yeah.
because you have the league MVP. You're going to have an open designated player spot now because you're getting rid of your failed striker, and you got to find a way to be better than what you've been.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you do that, but you've been really good. But in this era, right now, with the way teams are being built in MLS, and as chaotic and as blood cutthroat as it is, that's not good enough, especially for having a league MVP.
Yeah.
Find your wings, get over the surf, make sure Wilson is tied down tightly, and get through it, Nashville.
Oh, yeah. Wilson. Yes. Make sure that Wilson's tied down tightly. Will Smith would be an entirely different movie. That would be like
I said Wilson.
You said Will Smith.
No, I said Wilson.
You said Will Smith.
I said Wilson.
Fine.
Spalding.
There you go.
Well, Dr. Spalding.
Yes. East Bay. Go to East Bay.
R.I.P. East Bay.
Yes.
I'll see y'all.
See you tomorrow. There you go. As everything is ready for Jarrett Smith and his continually cooking of breakfast. So, and Kefsey, no doubt. Mukhtar causing pain from sea to shining sea for the last 3 seasons. I wonder, and I wonder, to Jarrett's point, and I wonder how hot. Yeah, Voigt, no doubt, absolutely, Robes. I wonder just how hot Gary Smith's seat is. If you do what you do, you get to a point, you're in a new building. I wonder how hot Gary Smith's seat will be if they continue to just kind of get to a point and they don't progress to it. So we'll see about that when it comes to Nashville. Getting into a lot of your thoughts this morning, and Emilio has really had a lot of them. Emilio thinks that Atlanta United is going to start off slow due to last year's injuries and roster uncertainty, have to fight to get to 7 for the 3rd year in a row, which I don't find acceptable. And he adds, yes, there's time for a roster, but then you can't use acclamation as an excuse when you still fall behind while said acclamation possibly takes place. I know that's a concern for a lot of folks. Emilio thinks that Montreal takes a step back. They have as many unknowns as Atlanta United roster-wise, dealing with NYC and Nick Cushing. Excuse me. Nick Cushing felt like Pineda the year before. Still don't know what we have in Pineda for me. I would posit that with Gonzalo Pineda and his staff, I know the frustrations of last year. When Pineda came in after Gabriel Heinze, you had a healthy squad that was second in points per game in the 21 season as they were making the rush to the playoffs. So that, I think, is the Gonzalo Pineda that you're looking for with players that weren't his. Had 2 points per game, was working to 2.1 points per game, was working to a point, just missed out on the playoffs. Then obviously last year, injuries, lack of being clinical, all those kinds of things, having to play a lot of young players and try to figure out, how to integrate a 5th string keeper on the fly. I think that, and remember also, Emilio, that where Gonzalo Pineda is and his staff, this is the first time since Tata Martino in 4 days that that Atlanta United will have a coach with a second transfer window. And that's big. And, it's like you've got a coach, a transfer window, coach is gone. Coach, transfer window, coach is gone. And so I think that once again, bringing in players that you are looking to bring in to fit your system, it can't just be transfer window, coach, change your coach, transfer window, change your coach, transfer window. There has to be some stability that has to be accepted here. And so I'm looking forward to this transfer window. You've seen Quentin Westberg, you've seen Derek Etienne Jr. to help out. And remember that you're also planning for that possible 50 games schedule with 34 in Major League Soccer, plus Leagues Cup, plus Open Cup. And so you're looking at, high 40s to low 50, and you're trying to find guys that aren't going to be like bench guy. It's going to be not just a 1A, but a 1B. It's not just going to be a 1 and a 2, but a 1B and a 2B, those kinds of things. You're looking for a balance and guys that aren't just bench guys, and I'll put those words in quotes. You're looking for guys that can give you starts, give you quality starts, and assimilate to what you want to do. And I think that the players that are brought in this transfer window will aid in that process, in addition to what we've seen so far with Derek Etienne Jr. and with Quentin Westberg. I'm looking forward to seeing what the transfer window yields, because obviously, we talked about it here, that there are questions that have to be addressed. Obviously, getting that third center back, but it's not really a third center back per se. Getting that additional center back, and I'll phrase it that way on purpose, because of the need to have depth, while Miles gets to 100%, and having someone that can integrate instantly, those kinds of things. That's what you're looking for in all of these transactions that you're looking to bring in. You've seen, and your required viewing is the piece that was done by Atlanta United on on the young guys that put in a lot of minutes. We talked about them yesterday with Caleb Wiley and Aiden McFadden putting in all the minutes that they did last season. So Atlanta United has put out a piece on the young guys that played a lot last year, and they're probably going to be called on to do the same again this year. But they will have integrated more and become more comfortable with the demands of what Gonzalo Pineda and the staff are looking for on a full year basis, where they're not just young guys being thrown into a situation because of injuries. It's like, oh, by the way, you're going to play right back today. Oh, by the way, you're going to play left back today. Now that they've had a season to integrate and grow on the job, I'm looking forward to seeing where the young guys continue to grow and evolve here and be a part of what you're looking for Atlanta United. So I guess, you're looking at Nashville as being a part of the discussion. So I guess the teams that seem to have the commonality of the question marks: Montreal because of Hernan Losada, NYC because of, I think NYC should be a part of the playoff picture. I just don't necessarily think that they'll be third. What about Red Bulls? Not so sure. Miami and Orlando for me are questions. And so that gives you the room for teams like Columbus and Atlanta. And we'll see what happens with those in addition. It seemed to have an entire team. Well, but I would. Yeah, you're okay. Emilio says we seem to have an entire team of bench guys outside of Miles, Gazan, Almada, Gutman, Sosa, and Aruju. I wouldn't call them bench guys. And the reason that I would phrase it differently is because of the demands of the schedule. And honestly, when it comes to your starting 11s, yes, you're going to have those guys that are going to be a part of your process every single time out. But the depth that you have to address teams that you're going to be playing who present different challenges. And I think that, when you have teams that would necessitate you playing five at the back, you have a Caleb Wiley that you can rely on and go Wiley, Lennon, two center backs, Brooks Lennon on the right-hand side. How do you, and this is, like I said, this is a conversation that we had yesterday, and it's probably going to be a conversation that we're going to have until opening day. Marcelino Moreno and what you do with Marcy. Obviously, Marcy was frustrated at the lack of playing time at the end of last year. And, understandably so. He wants to play and he wants to win, but you need guys that are going to fit a specific game set. And this is what I would ask, is that look at it a game at a time and don't look at them as bench guys per se. I know that we look at an Alex DeJohn or players like that who are pressed into service, and you are looking at things in a certain developmental manner. So I think that Noah Cobb is going to be, your fourth center back. I think that, Caleb Wiley is going to be getting some, some activity out on the left-hand side, especially if you have to go five at the back or go 4-5-1, 5-4-1, however you want to phrase it. I know that a lot of folks are looking at the midfield. We've talked about the midfield questions and what to address there. Alan Franco, we have to keep an eye on that. Is that just something that's being talked about? Is Sao Paulo going to want to do loan with an obligation to buy, purchase option, those kinds of things? We have to keep an eye on that. So, but like I said, remember, we brought in Derek Etienne Jr. to help you out on the right-hand side. So I'm not looking at it as bench guys per se. I'm looking at it as depth because you're going to need depth. And I think that we have to take the construct of starter versus bench and put the terminology to the side, because game by game is going to present different challenges. Because if you're playing 3 matches in a week, you're going to need to test that. You're going to need that roster depth that you have and say, okay, I need you in 2 of these 3. I need you to give me a match here, and so I can rest my starters. So I'm not going to use bench as terminology. I'm just going to use the depth. And honestly, when everyone is healthy, I think that with this cap and how the front office can massage it, if you want to use that word, I think that you can. And so I think that you can construct a roster in a way that can give you the depth that you're looking at and be prepared for these 45, 48, 50 game schedules and things like that. So I would just say take the term starter bench, and I would look at it. I would look at it that way. Wiley seems to go directly opposite to all the getting people playing time together talk last year. My view is you have a core, true. You may have to swap individual pieces out from now and then, but you have a core. No, Wiley, I agree with you. There is a core there, and you're going to have guys that are going to start each and every time out. But in situations with multiple competitions, in situations where you've got a lot of games in a short period of time, you're going to have those guys that you're going to look at. And obviously, you look at a Brad Guzan who may not be ready for match 1. Miles Robinson might not be ready for match 1. And you're going to need guys who have experience that are going to be able to help you in those situations. Okay, so all right, so then Emilio and Wiley, let me have the 2 of you go with a significant core. I would say that once you're healthy, that you do, because if you look at let's all things being equal, let's look at your core. Gutman, Miles, Lennon, Sosa, Etienne, or however you want to phrase it on the right-hand side. All right. Let's go back. All right. So your core, all things being equal. Lennon, Purata, Miles, Gutman, Gazan, Sosa, Almada, Aruju, and I'm at 8 right now. And then you would hope that whatever the end of your striker conversation is gives you 9. So that to me means that there's 9 at the very least that you're looking at on a game-by-game basis. We have Kur, but the core is still molten. Okay. Kur. Cream? Okay, sorry. My French is off. Molten lava. Okay, so I would say just take it, all things being equal, that you've got a core. But then you need to add the depth around it because of multiple competitions and those guys that you can drop in immediately and be confident that they are ready to go. Caleb Wiley and Aiden McFadden, Noah Cobb as he continues to grow and evolve. Like I said, Derek Etienne Jr. Out on the right-hand side. I know a lot of you are looking at the midfield, and I know that Mateus Sosechu and Emerson Heineman are talking points. We'll look at that. Then you've got depth at the striker position. Dom Dwyer, if he comes back. I know that a lot of folks were wondering about Dom, but you put Dom in that position and he's done well. So I would look at it as core and then core plus depth, not like starter depth or something like that, but look at your core plus the other folks that you have on hand that you aren't going to be afraid to put in on a daily basis, if that makes sense, if you need to, especially like I said, 3 matches in a week, multiple competitions, all those kinds of things. Is that you're constructing you're a group that you're confident with in addition to your starters, all things being equal. And yes, I know that you're looking at Brad, say late spring, and you don't know what Miles's timetable is. And like I said, you don't want to rush them back. You want them as close to 100% as possible. So instead of starter bench, I would look at it as core and depth. How about that? Does that make sense when it comes to how I'm looking at it when it comes to terminology and things like that? So that's how I'm looking at it. And you're going to need that depth to help you through on a game by game basis, especially with all these multiple schedules. Okay. We passed the hour mark. And so that means one thing. And so that means it's time to read a promo. And it's time for the first time in a while where I get to fix the music level. And we're at 19. So let me see if that works. And getting down to rock. And here's where we start the promo with my friends over my left shoulder, for those of you watching on Twitch. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's the Lemonized service. The Lemonized deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Builders and property managers use the Lemonized service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. And it is a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Kind to the environment. Freeze are our favorite masking agents we have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard. Because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard, you take out that can or the spray bottle, you spray it in the air. There's a reason they call it a masking agent. You're masking the odor. You're not attacking the issue all the way down to the molecule like our friends at Eliminized Service do on a daily basis. Pricing very, very easy. Using cubic meter parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you. Offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, before I grab my pen, go to the website, Lemonize.com. But do us a favor here at SDH. Use the /Atlanta after the .com so they know what part of the world that you are reaching out to them from so they can help attack your problem. So your full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta. Lemonize.com/Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Lemonize.com. Proud sponsors of everything SDH on a Wall Pass Wednesday. See, and then you go from like 15 to 10 and on the levels, and it just kind of crashes out a little bit. And so I don't think there's any real, what's the word I'm looking for? True fade. Right, and like I said, I understand the talking points and the hot. Well, I mean, if you were to consider, it's where do you put if you have Almada up top, I know that you're looking at the midfield, and I know that's the midfield is where you're looking at the two folks in the midfield. I know are the talking points. Hasechu Ibarra. Heineman, I know that's where you're looking at, Emilio, when it comes to the talking points for the roster. If I could figure out what I'm trying to say for my sentences, but and we've talked about the idea that the midfield is where you're going to be looking at things, but and Will, once again, a signal of intent. And I think we all expect it to be January as well. Once again, remember, physicals are the 6th, and the training camp starts on the 8th. But remember, you didn't get Joseph until just before things started. So, sometimes it comes at the end of training camp. But yes, I mean, like I said, just because you don't hear anything doesn't mean nothing's going on for like a triple negative. And I know my mom's going to drive me, will be driven crazy about stuff like that. So, true. Yeah. And I would also posit, Emilio, that, yeah, you do have to think about replacing Almada sooner than later. And I would also posit that, they're not just waiting for an exit for an entrance. You're with all of this that's going on, with Thiago Almada. We know he's not going to be spending the rest of his career here. We know he's going to be moving on. And so, yeah, you're looking at another round of folks that you're looking to find as an investment for the next big thing and work your way into that. No, they're not waiting for an outbound transaction. It's like, we've got to do something. No, they understand the dynamic, and so now this is where all of the looking at leagues and things like that is where you're going to be looking at next. You know, you're scouring the countries, and you're probably looking at the South American continent again to try to find the next big thing and bring it up here. So knowing full well that you have shown that a Miguel Almiron can come here from Lanús and he can go to Europe, and he's going to be getting some next big payday from either Newcastle or somebody else if they're really interested. Miguel Almiron is going to really make some folks a lot of money. And Thiago Almada will be the same way. Thiago Almada will have a nice sell-on, and you can't. And so, Almada is going to demand a decent fee by Atlanta United. But you can't, if you are a front office, Emilio, that is worth your salt, you cannot wait and be reactive with someone that is that much of a talent. You cannot wait. And the front office is not waiting for that to go down. You're not waiting for an exit and go, oh crap, we've got to replace somebody. They're looking. I mean, games are finally kicking back in the LPF in Argentina, just to give you an example. And this is where I would plug Fanatis, ftz.co/soccer down here. If you don't have Fanatis, I would recommend getting it, because what it has done, and I will say this, Fanatis for me has given me a window into South American football where I've been able to watch. And if I hear a name that perks up, I can dive in and I can watch there. Same thing with the Spanish language package or the super hyper mega cable sports package I have on my cable. And I can watch Nuestra Tele out of Colombia, and I can watch Costa Rican football as well. And so there are ways that the hemispheric and global scope of the front office when it comes to chasing after talent. When Atlanta and I got into the CONCACAF Champions League, the fact that we had ways to watch it there. There are ways to keep an eye on things, and also there are folks that there are forward thinking. And yeah, I do, Emilio. I honestly do. I think that there are enough folks in the front office to forward think, and yeah, and I know that Garth Lagerwey did talk about bolstering analytics, but I look at analytics and analysis as all of the same. And so I think that, there's nothing wrong with bolstering analytics. There's nothing wrong with more sets of eyes, and I see zero issue with that whatsoever. But don't get bogged down in the numbers of folks in a particular department. Just because a department may only have X number of folks doesn't mean that there aren't other folks in other departments that are a part of the process. So, hey, you want more sets of eyes. It's never a bad thing, because then what that lets you do is that lets you expand your scope, and you can have more sets of eyes on folks and sit there and have more thought in the room and sit there around the big table and go, how about this guy? How about this guy? How about this guy? And then you have more eyes, and then they could add more folks to the discussion. It's what you're looking for. And so, no, I think there are enough folks in the front office that do forward think. And if Garth Lagerwey, mentions about the need to bolster analytics, go for it. Because if you want to be that global brand, and you are, considering your transactions and the interest that you have, you've got to find ways to stay on that front edge. And if it means Garth Lagerwey commenting about the need to bolster analytics, then bolster analytics. Go for it. Go for it. But like I said, just because a department may only have an attached number to it doesn't mean that folks outside of that department aren't a part of the process around the big table. So like I said, we're wrapping up 2022, heading into 2023. Training camp starts on the 6th with everybody touching their toes and getting stethoscopes placed on hearts and things like that. And so then you know what you have coming in. Training camp starts on the 8th. And we'll be keeping an eye on stuff up there. I know that we have some other things to look at today. I know we're going to look at the papers and see what's going on there with gossip, rumor, and innuendo before we go. We've got the final match of this go-round in Festive Fixtures, which is a reminder that Prem and Proper returns later this afternoon with your look at the first round of Festive Fixtures, getting you ready for the second round of Festive Fixtures before the new year. Early on right now, you've got early matches in the Copa del Rey. Couple of underdogs look like they might be making it through, including Casareno, who might be knocking off Tati Castellanos' Girona. Girona almost lost to a fourth division club last time, and they are a handful of minutes away from losing to another lower division club as a minus 385 favorite. Eldense is the only plus favorite right now that is leading in the four matches that kicked off at 8 o'clock or at 8:30 this morning, local time. Celta de Vigo's up big. Eldense is up. Casareno is this close to beating Girona at a plus 1107 in the juice boxes or in the champagne bottles, since we're getting close to New Year's. And Linares is an underdog at home facing Racing Santander. They're leading 1-0. So you can have the Copa del Rey with some early chaos, which we like. 3 o'clock this afternoon, Manchester City and Liverpool. Wait a second. That's like old. Let me refresh here. I'm like, wait a second. That's like old stuff. All right. So scratch everything that I just talked about. Super League going on in North Africa and in Europe. Right now, it's going to be a light day in the afternoon. Let me change. It's like they tell you to change your time zone. And so now I'm going to change my time zone here. And I'm looking at things at 3 o'clock in the afternoon going, wait a minute. But no, that's Greenwich Mean. Ligue 1 is at 11 o'clock. Monaco is a favorite at a minus 149. You've got Turkish Super League going on. Ligue 1 at 1 o'clock as well with Clermont and Lille. Lille's a minus 120. World Friendlies going on. The Liga de Portugal. Premiership in Scotland. Our friends at Aberdeen are a slight favorite as they go to Kilmarnock at a plus 156. Other favorites, Dundee United at home. These are all at 245. Livingston, a slight favorite at home against St. Mirren. Rangers, a big favorite at home against Motherwell. Hearts, the only road favorite as they go to St. Johnstone. Premier League, Leeds, Manchester City. And Manchester City's at a minus 417 heading to Elland Road, who are basically a plus 1100. There's a great article in The Guardian about the relationship between Jesse Marsch and Erling Haaland. And in the conversations heading into this match, Jesse Marsch actually told Erling Haaland, it's okay, it's cool if you had a bit of a hamstring injury and didn't make it into this match. But not anticipating that, anticipating that there's going to be a lot of offense. That's the word I'm looking for. Liga, a couple of matches at 3 o'clock. PSG, still without Lionel Messi until like January 2nd or 3rd. At home, big favorite against Strasbourg. Lyon, favorite on the road at Brest. Hibs and Celtic is at 3 o'clock. Celtic's a minus 312. Liga Portugal, Liga Jamaica. And that takes you into the late night when it comes to all of the action today. And let's see where you can watch all of said action. Once again, reminder, you can go to fanatisfntz.co/soccer down here, and you can subscribe to Fanatis as I have. I have become addicted, and so that's not much of a surprise. BN and BN and Espanol have your Ligue 1 action, have the triple header at 9, 11, and 1. Hibs and Celtic is on CBS Sports Network at 3. USA Network has Leeds and Manchester City at 3 o'clock. Gold TV has your doubleheader in the Portuguese Primera. Portimonense and Casaplatense at 2. Porto and Aruca at 4:15. 2 to NA has the Copa por Mexico. Tigres Santos Laguna at 6. Cruz Azul and Americas at 8. And Universo is your simulcast of Leeds and Manchester City at 3 o'clock. So gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We'll start with the papers in England. There you go. Avoiding the 3 and the 4-letter paper as we always do. Daily Telegraph, Arsenal have had a £55 million bid for Mikhailo Mudryk rejected by Shakhtar Donetsk, who are demanding a fee of around 85. They want a lot of that up front because of the money that they've lost in transfers. Still waiting to hear anything from CAS on the £40 million suit against UEFA by Shakhtar Donetsk for the players who've exited and probably won't return because of the 1-year waiver that was granted to them that they could leave on a free. And with the war still going on in Ukraine, don't anticipate those players coming back. And so Dario Serna, the sporting director, and everybody at Shakhtar Donetsk are looking for some financial recompense because of everybody who has exited. And so we'll see if that continues. Southampton considering recalling Jan Bednarek from his loan at Aston Villa. Leicester City boss Brendan Rodgers wants a center back, left back, and a right winger in January. Soyuncu, Ayoze, Vestergaard, and Dennis Pratt will be allowed to leave. And so we'll keep an eye on Leicester City. Nix will keep an eye on it for you. Arsenal ready to build a statue of Arsene Wenger outside of the Emirates, potentially as early as next year following his visit on Boxing Day. Evening Standard, Betinho responded after bizarrely being included on Manchester United's squad list, and so that'll be interesting. Daily Mirror, PSG boss Christophe Galtier has played down any issue between Messi and Mbappe, as he should. Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag looking to add veteran Inter Milan center-back Stefan de Vrij to his defensive options in the summer when he'll be a free. Rennes forward Martin Terrier has reemerged as a possible Manchester United target in January as they look for an affordable replacement for CR37. Liverpool are in pole position to sign Napoli winger Chucky Lozano, according to reports in Italy. The Times, contract talks between Everton and Jordan Pickford have stalled, leaving his long-term future at the club in serious doubt. They need to sign him, kind of like Orlando and Gillespie. Sign him, things could be a lot worse. Manchester United will not be getting involved, according to the Times, in the battle to sign Joao Felix because of Atletico's demands of a loan fee and 100% wage contribution, totaling £16 million. Forgot to ask Jared about this before he left. Celtic will renew their interest in Banik Ostrava forward Ladislav Almasi if their pursuit of Cho Gui-sung does not go to plan, with Ange Postecoglou keen to add to his attacking options as doubts swirl over Georgios Giamakis' future in Scotland. And new Wigan boss Kolo Touré says he'll take a very close look at his Scottish loanees, Stephen Humphreys from Hearts, Jamie McGrath from Dundee United, Jordan Jones from Kilmarnock, before deciding on whether to recall any of them. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo this morning. Probably a lot of it's around Mykhailo Mudryk, but we'll keep an eye on that. Chelsea have made a record offer, and they're not the only one, so keep an eye on this. Chelsea made an offer of £115 million to sign Benfica's an Argentine 21-year-old midfielder Enzo Fernandez. That is record in Portuguese via Zach Lowry. I think two teams have matched. I want to say Manchester United is the other. So keep an eye on the Enzo Fernandez saga and the two teams in the Premier League that are chasing after him. So the fee has been met. Now it's just going to come up to personal terms for Benfica. Everton have yet to sign off on that 5-year contract. Have been agreed with Jordan Pickford, and that has also alerted Chelsea, Man U, and Tottenham. That's from the 4-letter paper. Take that information at your own peril. Arsenal expected to make a fresh offer on Mykhailo Mudryk, according to the Evening Standard, since we talked about the £55 million one being knocked off. Some women's news, Women's Super League. Spurs set to break the transfer up record for a female player after England forward Beth England agreed to join for £250,000 from Chelsea. Once again, that's from the 4-letter paper. Napoli hopefully trying to tie up a permanent deal for Tanguy Ndombele, who's been on loan with them from Spurs since August. Real Madrid planning to make a move for Bayern Munich and Canada fullback Alphonso Davies. We'll keep an eye on that one. Manchester United focusing on a loan signing to add to their attack in January after going over their budget during the summer when they spent in excess of £200 million. That's from our friends at The Telegraph. Newcastle United could try to sign 31-year-old Italy midfielder Jorginho in the summer when he's out of contract at Chelsea. 4-letter paper. Lille forward Jonathan David linked with Chelsea and Manchester United. The 22-year-old Canada international says, quote, every player would want to play in the Premier League someday. La Voix du Nord via Metro. Liverpool defender Virgil van Dijk spoke to Dutch teammate Cody Gakpo to help convince the 23-year-old to join the Reds from PSV Eindhoven, with a deal having been agreed to with the two clubs. Leeds United preparing an offer for Red Bull Salzburg and Austria defender Maximilian Vober. That's from our friend Fabrizio Romano. Former Fulham and Bourne boss Scott Parker is the favorite to become the next manager at Norwich City, who sacked Dean Smith. Sean Dyche is also in the running for the post. Dean Smith was dismissed after only results in 3 of the previous 13 matches. Norwich City is 12 points out of the chase, currently in the championship. We'll go over those numbers in just a bit. Atletico Madrid and Sevilla interested in signing 34-year-old Argentina center back Nicolas Otamendi, who'll be out of contract at Benfica in the summer. And Inter Milan are trying to fight off competition from several Premier League clubs for Borussia Mönchengladbach and France forward Marcus Thuram. That is from our friends at 90 Minutes. Now, going over the standings, we were talking about the sacking of Dean Smith yesterday, and going over how it lays out in the championship. Next match for Norwich is in 2 days' time on Friday as a part of their festive fixtures, hosting Jessica Charman's Reading at Carrow Road. They are a minus 130 on the board. But you look at Norwich. Norwich is a part of the discussion in the promotion playoff. And it is a mess right now in the championship. Burnley has only lost twice in their first 24 matches. They're at 50 points. Sheffield United is in the second current automatic promotion spot. They're at 47 points. Blackburn's lost 3 of 4. They've not drawn a match this year. It's either a win or a loss. And so 13 wins, 39 points this year for Blackburn. Watford is at 37. Norwich, Millwall right now on goal difference. They would be the two teams to make it into the promotion playoff. Norwich at 35 points at +4. Millwall at 35 points at +3. Now the fun begins. QPR also at 35 points, dead even on goal difference. Reading at -6 through 24 matches. They're in 8th. Sunderland, Preston North End at 34 points. Middlesbrough, Coventry, Luton, Luton at 33. West Brom, Birmingham, Swansea at 32. Stoke is at 30. So basically it is 5 points from 5th to 17th. 5th to 17th in the championship. That's how crazy it is right now. 5 points separating 5th through 17th. Then you have 5 points separating 18 to the bottom. Bristol City's at 27. Rotherham's at 27. Goal difference being the difference here, -3 to -6. Cardiff at -8. Hull at -14. All 4 of them from 17 to 21, all of them are at 27 points. Blackpool's drawn 3 in a row. They're at 25. They're in the relegation fight right now. Wigan is at 24. They've lost 2 in a row. They're at 23rd, next to last. And then Huddersfield, they won their last one to kind of close the gap a little bit. So you have craziness in the championship right now. If you're a championship follower, keep an eye on the championship right now because, frankly, 5 points from 5th to 17th is insane. And then 5 points from 18th to the bottom is just as nuts. So we'll keep an eye on the championship for the remainder of the year and see how things lay out here. But it's absolutely nuts if you are not in one of the 2 automatic spots for a promotion right now, which is Burnley and Sheffield United. So we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on that as we go forward for this entire season. Absolutely crazy. Once again, reminder, look at the Caleb Wiley, Aiden McFadden piece that Atlanta United put out on their social media platforms to take a peek at what it was like for the 2 of them last season and what they're looking to do pushing forward here in 2022 and in 2023. They're already around in 2022. So that's pretty much where we are. Thursday, Friday, we are going to, programming notes. Later today, Prem and Proper returns. So that'll be up on the network later today. Also, we're catching up with our friends at Cleveland SC, one of the new teams in the NPSL. That'll be up on the network. The Getting to Know You interviews that we do with the 1v1s. That'll be up later this afternoon as well. Catching up with Nico Moreno. Then we'll find out what went down with the Pedro Gallese contract negotiations and what the hiccups were there. Obviously, things got smoothed over, but we'll catch up with Nico here as the days continue as we get closer to the end of the calendar year. And as a reminder for Thursday, Friday, once again, just, kind of get your thoughts together for the end of the year. And what we'll do is we'll kind of look back at 22, what sticks with you from 22, whether it's Major League Soccer or the World Championship, you name it. Some of your cool stories that you have that you'll take with you from 2022, and we will continue to work our way through all of that. So that is another go round of us here at SDH, and we'll be back again tomorrow, 9:05, as we always are. And we will roll through all the news that's going on in the world, all the gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Once again, remember, you've got Scottish Premiership at 3 o'clock, CBS Sports Network, and you've got Leeds and Manchester City. Take the over. And before we go, let me double check that because I want to see what the numbers are. Just to kind of satisfy a curiosity. Okay, so we know that Manchester City's a minus 417. Over-unders on the juice boxes or the champagne bottles. 2.5 is a minus 278. 3.5 is a minus 110, and that's when it flips. 4.5 is a plus 207, and 5.5 is a plus 422. So that's where it changes. It changes in and around 3 3/4. It goes from 3.5 is a minus 110, 3 3/4 is a plus 115. So that's when it flips over. So anticipate a lot of goals today, but that's just me. For everybody here at SDH, for Jason, for Jarrett, for Nick, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us for yet another go-round of SDH on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Thanks to you guys for all of your thoughts when it comes to what you're looking for from the Eastern Conference in the year 2023. It's going to be a fun one, and we're glad that you're here with us to follow along and walk with us through it. So for everybody here at SDH, thanks for hanging out. We'll do it again tomorrow, and since it is the end of the show, mucho plata y'all. Play it safe, everybody. We'll see you next time, and that means that I get to do this. We'll catch up with you at 9:05 tomorrow.